This captivating painting was made by Maynard Dixon. Title of the painting is I Looked on My Valley and It Was Beautiful. Dixon was born in Fresno, California in 1875. He dropped out of school and earned the title of a self-taught artist. He was known for landscape paintings, characterized by simplicity and authenticity. This painting shows a wide view with one person standing out.
I think at auction, this might bring as much as 20 to 30,000, maybe even a bit more.
This whaling log belonged to the guest's great-great-grandfather, who was a whaling master out of Bristol, Rhode Island. The whaling log detailed an almost 3-year voyage from May 1853 to December 1855, going from Bristol as far south as the Antarctic Sea and as far west as the mid-Pacific Ocean. The specimen was incredibly detailed, with scrimshaw stamps to show when a whale was caught. What increases the value of a mundane whaling log? Interesting details which bring it alive, such as
to come out to whaling boats. This passage talks about 4 boats coming out to trade with them. The boats had things like provisions and 9 women.
What's the value of this one-of-a-kind spicy log?
As far as value, I would say a conservative retail value on this, being one of a kind, $5,000, maybe $7,000.
Goodness.
These baseballs and the picture were from his grandfather, Bill Campbell, who was a Mr. Baseball at Boise and helped the sport's growth there. One of the balls is dedicated to his grandfather, and both were painted. And the photo, probably from the late 1950s, is also signed where he meets a famous player. The 2 balls are from George Sosnak, and the inscription in one of them is from Roger Maris.
He loved the game, loved the players, and he was meticulous.
The photo is signed by Hank Aaron, who broke Babe Ruth's home run record.
And then we have a fantastic black and white photograph of Hank Aaron. And what's Hank Aaron known for?
He's a big slugger.
He's a big slugger, too.
Yep.
How would the signed ball be appraised then?
At auction today, the Roger Maris ball would bring $15,000 to $20,000.
And the Boise Braves ball?
Now, your Boise Braves ball, it would bring $1,500 to $2,000 at auction.
Okay.
The photo also has tremendous worth.
At auction today, it would be $100 to $200 for it.
Right. Well, we'll definitely hold on to that one for sure.
Sure.
He bought this wonderful painting in a Rhode Island auction, which was the birthplace of the artist named Edward Bannister, one of the founders of the Providence Art Club and a notable black artist of the 19th century.
When they stepped up to receive the prize, they said, "Oh no, we're looking for Edward Bannister because he was a black artist." And
the painting is from around 1885, after his moving to Providence in 1870, where he was a sailor, and this special painting captures this mood. The painting is likely one of many of his sketches made in this style.
And so he was able to set up a studio early on. And I believe they lived in the Boston area till they moved to Providence.
Its dramatic tone and weight of the black history of America add value to it. But how much is it worth?
So if this painting were for sale in a gallery in New York, I believe that it could be sold in the range of $45,000.
wow, that's amazing.
This young boy, with a great eye for antiques, bought this amazing piece for just $1 in a garage sale 4 years ago. The centenary sculpture is from circa 1920, and it was made in Vienna, Austria. It was made by Franz Bergmann Foundry, who worked on sculptures in bronze at the time. The company made many statues in the 20th century that are quite valuable today, given the materials and unique fabrication that inspired many companies. But the boy could not be expecting how much $1 would be worth.
If you went into a store, they would probably ask about $1,200 for this.
Bought by his grandmother for $500 in 1935 to help with the hardships of her friend Emily von Blankendorf, this wonderful jewel is a sapphire ring that may have pertained to the Tsarist family. It's an American setting, but indeed probably a reset from Russia, as it is a rare piece of work, being a 12 to 13 karat sapphire jewel It's highly valued.
We also had one of the little diamonds on the side replaced that had gone missing.
The owner ended up losing one of the side diamonds and had to replace it.
I'm seeing also evidence that it has not been heated. There's a secondary silk growth within it. So that makes this pretty important.
But this affects the value of the jewel very little, especially because it may be an unheated piece. But how much would it be evaluated today?
This quality of cut, this quality of clarity, as a retail price, this piece of jewelry can be worth between $60,000 and $120,000.
My goodness.
This marvelous painting was a gift to his great aunt by the famous painter Raymond Johnson and his brother.
My parents gave it to me about 15 years ago.
The painting is clearly signed. It's dated 1926.
Painting is signed, being from 1926, in a style a little bit different from Raymond's famous works. In 1938, he founded the Transcendental Art Movement, for which he would be known, and the fact that this painting is earlier than that movement adds value to it. It's a very valuable piece, given its atypical nature and the modernist tones. But how much would it be worth?
Probably talking about $25,000 to $35,000. So it's really a valuable thing.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
The guest brought a split whale's tooth necklace. She inherited it from her mother. It was originated in the South Pacific, particularly Fiji and Tonga. Encountered by European explorers in the 18th and 19th centuries. Worn by chiefs and warriors as a symbol of status and strength. Made from split whale teeth intricately carved into designs. Given as gifts during ceremonies and used for currency and diplomacy. It gained attention in museums and private collections worldwide. Revered for aesthetic beauty and cultural significance, the appraiser valued it to range between $8,000 to $10,000.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it could even reach probably about $15,000.
Oh my God! Oh my goodness! Seriously?
I think you're surprised.
I am surprised. Oh my goodness!
This amazing vase shows how much better a clean piece looks. The piece got dirty because her mother was a chain smoker and would smoke near it. Nonetheless, she was a collector and passed the pottery to her only child. Made by Henrietta Bailey somewhere before 1905, the piece has an original price tag. Newcomb pottery is down in price, except for a few rare pieces, and this is one of them. The artist's dedication and the mix of colors make it a rare piece.
I'm never 100% right about these things, but I have a feeling this is going to clean up pretty well. I'm going to use a general purpose cleaner and
Although being hurt over time, with a good cleaning, it's way more beautiful. So what's the value then? It stands for about $25,000. The guest got a Tiffany vase from her husband as a Christmas present in 1978. The name Tiffany is synonymous with perfection, but this one has an interesting backstory. In 1999, the Roadshow in Des Moines valued it at $2,500 to $4,000. But the dealer they bought it from made a U-turn and insisted it's not a Tiffany.
It was made around 1894, 1895. And this coloration, you don't see this after 1900, and actually it's very prized by collectors.
Made before 1900, it's a rare find with a value between $4,000 to $5,000. And how did the guest take it?
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Can I hug you?
Of course.
He bought this painting in an auction in Nebraska, and from then he tried to find more information about it. The painting is from Palmer Hayden, circa 1940, and it was painted in Long Island Sound. The painting was part of the Harlem Renaissance, which started in the 30s. The painter and the art were very significant to the black history and arts in America.
People think of his style as being more self-taught. He studied in Maine, he studied in New York, and he also studied in Paris.
Given its significance, the work is quite valuable, but it has some problems.
This area has some flaking, and it's also quite dirty.
Its condition has deteriorated, which affects the value a little bit. But still, how much is it worth?
In terms of its value, I would estimate it between $8,000 and $12,000.
Really? That's great.
Good.
That's unbelievable.
Let's unfold the tale of the Eanger Irving Coos painting. The painting was bought by the owner's mother-in-law in 1930. The medium of this painting is an oil on board. Coos was a fascinating oil painter. He, along with his friends Blumenschein and Sharp, were founders of the Taos School.
As a summer art community, they all lived and worked most of the year in New York.
Coos was the first president of the Taos Society of Artists. He promoted Native American culture through his paintings. He employed modern painting styles. What would be the value of the painting?
I would say a retail replacement value would be about $75,000.
This is good. Yeah, great.
This guest inherited this beautiful folk art carved panel from his maternal grandfather, who immigrated from Sweden to America. The painted masterpiece didn't come from Sweden, as could be judged by these two flags. It's an allegorical story of his travel, but it is an interesting three-dimensional depiction of a European-looking city on wood.
You can see that these buildings on the horizon here are not American buildings, but rather more of a European-looking city.
The inlaid pieces of glass add a whimsical touch to the art piece. Though restoration is a death knell to antiques, this one is done quite well. It has enhanced the beauty of this piece. The job has taken the paint back to a dry surface, giving it the look of an original paint, which is what collectors look for. And what does such perfection cost in today's world?
Well, I think for auction purposes, we would probably estimate it in the $3,000 to $5,000 range.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
That's very good.
The host presented Field Trip, Architecture Remnants. This is the arc that served as the entrance to the old Chicago Stock Exchange by Louis Sullivan. Some buildings are still standing, but many buildings no longer exist, like the Chicago Stock Exchange. Standing in front of this incredible elevator bank from the first floor of the Chicago Stock Exchange, Louis Sullivan was the father of the modern skyscraper. It's a symphony of motifs from the period, and it's a classic Sullivan. When the building was demolished, sadly in 1972, some survived. Frank Lloyd Wright, who was one of his most famous students, became one of America's greatest architects. The work was built for the Avery Coonley Playhouse in Riverside, Illinois. He called it the Kinder Symphony. Kinder Symphony was appraised for $400,000 or more.
Would easily bring in the $400,000 range or more.
The guest came with Ed Valigursky Vietnam illustrations. He got these when he and his dad went to an estate sale in Atlanta, Georgia. They kind of looked like paintings. These two copies as posters for people's houses are from Popular Mechanics. This is the cover of the Popular Mechanics book, in which Ed Valigursky was one of the artists. He was born in 1926 and died in 2009. He did a lot of illustrations for science fiction magazines and articles and books. These illustrations were appraised for $4,000 to $6,000 apiece. A distant gift from a World War II combatant to his parents that ended up in the hands of his brother, this 20th century pottery was bought in China somewhere in the 40s. From Jingzhen in the Guangzhou period, they have an amateur inscription of China. Probably going as wedding gifts, the vase and the plate suffered some damage.
The first thing we notice is the profusion of bats, colorful clouds, lotus over the entire surface.
But are still in a wonderful condition for their time in history.
In China and in Chinese culture carry extra meaning, which is of long life, prosperity.
All from their condition to the historical meaning behind make them quite valuable. The owner has no idea of their worth, but how much is it?
It's going to be about $15,000 to $25,000 at
Holy
auction.
Toledo.
He acquired this beautiful sculpture from the family that owned the New York Graham Galleries. He had this piece for $1,100, as they were willing to give it away. This is a 20th century sculpture by Anna H. Huntington, a great American sculptor of the time. She studied and exhibited in Paris and even sculpted for Joan of Arc. Along with her husband, they found the Brook Green Gardens in South Carolina. The sculpture is in bronze, with a particular three-dimensional style, made probably in 1905.
A wonderful look in 3 dimensions, and I think that's what the great thing about sculpture is. It exists in its own space, and I love the way the drapery comes down.
Being one of her early works, named Winter Noon, it's very valuable. So, what's the appraisal?
In this market, especially her work has maintained its value and has actually gone up in value. I would say in today's market, in a gallery setting, you're probably looking at $8,000 to $10,000.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It beats 1,100, and I'm delighted in the pleasure it's brought us over the years.